Renegades.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Nerd Rage Renegades podcast, episode 89. On trucking along to episode 100. Chief and Panda are with me again, and yes, chugging along to episode 100.
That's right. We have a special. Whoa, the vacuum. We have a special thing planned for episode 100, where our good buddy Coolbeer will return to fulfill the prophecy. He will fulfill the four-peat prophecy every 25 episodes.
Every 25 episodes, the Cool Beer appears. But this episode, we have somebody else really fantastic appearing. In just a few minutes, you're going to hear our interview with, you may know him from many different things, but currently he's serving on Gotham as Professor Hugo Strange. That's right. Right here on the Nerd Rage Renegades podcast, we have the one and only BD Wong.
That's right. Tony Award winner. Classing this show up. This show's just got like 100% class here. We got a Tony Award winner tonight.
So tonight we're going to be talking to him about Hugo Strange, his take on Hugo Strange. So we're really excited about that, of course, big Batman fans that we are, big Gotham fans that we are. This is definitely a one for the books.
Yeah, one of the oldest recurring Batman villains. One of the predates the Joker, and he is the first live-action person to play Hugo Strange.
Indeed, yes. I mean, Hugo Strange has been on so many different. I mean, he was in Batman the Animated Series. He was on The Batman. You know, real big part in Batman Arkham City.
And in my personal opinion, Hugo Strange is probably one of the more evil, more unsympathetic characters in the Batman universe. Like even the Joker's got some sympathy to him, but Hugo Strange doesn't really. He's kind of just an evil guy.
And this is a really interesting take on Hugo Strange that Mr. Wong is bringing to the screen. So we're going to be talking to him about that. So let's not waste any more time. Let's just go ahead and get right on into our interview with BD Wong, and then come on back after the interview. We're going to talk some shop. So here it is, Mr. BD Wong. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now sitting here. You may know him from Law & Order SVU, from Jurassic World, from Oz, and he's currently playing Hugo Strange on the TV show Gotham. We have Mr. BD Wong. Sir, thank you for joining us.
Sure. Hey, how are you, everybody?
Doing fantastic.
Great. It's an honor that you're here, and thank you very much.
Sure.
We wanted to have you on. We are huge Batman fans first and foremost. We're huge Batman fans, and to have your character, Hugo Strange, who is one of the oldest of Batman's villains in his publication, is just an honor. And were you familiar with Professor Hugo Strange before you got the role?
No, I wasn't. I didn't. I think that the name seemed super familiar to me, but then when I saw the images of him, that I looked up over the time that he has been in existence, I didn't really recognize him. So I wasn't a really big comic kid, and that's probably why, because he certainly has had a lot of staying power over the years, since like the 40s. And so I was nevertheless really into it, because there was always kind of a lot of potential to the idea of coming on and being the new villain on a show like this.
Yeah, and you are the first live action Hugo Strange. I just want to know, do you feel that the character is a do you feel like he's really two people? Does Hugo Strange wear a mask in some ways? He's really almost a two characters.
In what way? How do you mean? You mean a nice person and a not nice person?
Yeah, he's kind of wearing the mask of the head of Arkham, and he's doing these insidious things kind of underground. And I was wondering if you approach him as one megalomaniacal personality that manipulates, or if you think there's really two sides to Hugo Strange.
Oh, I think of him as the first, the latter, the former. Sorry, which is that his situation is that he's got this other underworld thing kind of going on. But I don't think of him more. I don't approach the work that would require. The work doesn't require me to kind of split him into two different things. It's just kind of as needed. You are, just like we are in real life. You are who you are to the people that you are dealing with at the moment, and we all have different aspects of ourselves that we access for different people in our lives. And so, because he has an extreme kind of polarity when it comes to the different types of people he might be interfacing with. That might be the reason why you'd think of him as two people, but really he's no different from the rest of us because we all do it in a certain way. He's just got much more underneath going on, literally, and so that's actually fun because it's very clear how you should be when you're with one, when you're dealing with Jim Gordon, you're one person, and then when you're dealing with someone that's on your side, you deal with them differently. So it kind of all happens naturally once you map it all out.
Excellent.
It seems like, and what I really love is this Hugo Strange in this Batman universe. He's kind of creating the villains that Batman will face later on in life. He's created Firefly. He's created Clayface, which we just saw. People are saying it's Clayface. How is that knowing that this character, you're basically creating all these villains that Batman will one day end up facing in iconic battles?
Well, the show is it's great. It's great, and it's lots of fun, and it really is fun. You're right in your instincts. I think the reason why you're asking is, isn't that fun? Because it seems like it would be. It is really fun because you have a certain kind of power that creates all of these things, and two, you're kind of like a fulcrum for all of this energy that comes into the show. So those things are always good and actually really welcome to me because I often have done a lot of work in my career where I'm not the fulcrum of anything, where I'm an outsider or where I am a supporter of some other event, or I'm sticking my head in somewhere and then ducking out again. But I'm not always so deeply entrenched in the action. And so that is fantastic for me. I really, really dig that part of it. The part about them being villains that will go on to become the villains that we know, that's really tricky. Gotham is really, for better or for worse, kind of bending the traditions of who some of these people are, kind of combining characters that have never been combined before and overlapping characters that have never been overlapped before. And that, to me, is creatively interesting. And I can imagine in some ways, nervous making for the diehard fans of the origin of these characters and where they're come. Things like the relative ages of the characters and how we should be tracking that. That becomes tricky when so many people want me to reanimate Jerome Valeska and turn him into the Joker, but then in the same sentence, so many people say he's too old.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting to me because a lot of people have a real strong timeline of how old Bruce Wayne is in relation to all the other characters. And I think that's super interesting. I like that. But you will see that in a show like this that is deigning to reinvent or bend or re-examine or reinterpret some of these characters, that there's going to be a lot of different ways of approaching it, and they're not always going to approach the way that they create a character or portray a character. They're not always going to do that the same way.
Well, speaking as a longtime Batman fan, I've been collecting and reading comics and reading Batman for 35 years, and I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. I think this is unwritten Batman history that you guys are right now writing, because Hugo Strange came into the Batman universe with really no backstory. He was just a mad scientist that showed up, and you're kind of you're setting new ground. And as a longtime Batman fan, I love it, and I think your Hugo Strange is fantastic. I think it's great.
Well, thanks. That's awesome. You know, I have interacted with a wide range of fans, and it's an interesting show because there are diehard fans, there are fans, general fans of the Batman legacy, and then there are people that are really not, that are just enjoying the show for what it is, and everyone kind of approaches those things from different points of view, and I think that's partly why I'm anticipating a lot. You know, there's a lot of people out there that complain about stuff, and I find that really interesting because they have an idea in their mind of how they want it to be. So anything that's slightly off from what they want it to be, they don't like, and they say so very voraciously. But I think that your response to the show is not that there's a right or wrong, but I think it's a little bit more productive and interesting and positive, obviously, that you have to take into consideration as you enjoy the show that this is all uncharted territory in some ways, and that the characters are though we know what they've become, we don't know. You know, that's the beauty of the origin story concept, is that we are learning things that never occurred to us, or we see something moving towards something else that we know how it's going to end, but how it gets there should be interesting. And when you can appreciate the show on that level, I think that your enjoyment is much greater. That if you're not nitpicking at all of the tiny little, well, this shouldn't be this, this should be this instead. I like that better. You know, it's more positive, and it helps everyone appreciate the show and what's being done on the show a lot better. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, the DC multiverse kind of lends itself to that. I mean, there are different timelines, the things that happen in canon, out of canon. There's retcons. I look at it as like another version. As it's something unto itself, something new.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is that that's interesting to me because not everyone does that, and I think that what you're saying is so logical, that the multiverse is full of like overlapping or gaps, or like Hugo Strange himself occurred and recurred throughout the history of the correct me if I'm wrong, in slightly different permutations.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So you can't say that it's just one person that we are right about or wrong about, because there's too many different versions already out there, and the history is riddled with all these different kind of versions of it. And then you're getting into post-comics, you get into video games and other things, which are valid interpretations of the character as well. So absolutely. I think that it's interesting, and I really appreciate where you're coming from, because I've sensed, I don't take it that personally, but this kind of energy where people complain about things is interesting to me, because I realize now that they're not always really well-founded criticisms, because what you're saying is already built into it. There's already inconsistencies built into the whole universe.
Absolutely. There absolutely is. I think that you guys are untangling a lot of jumbled Batman history. There have been... It makes much more sense to me that Hugo Strange created these people and sent them out to create chaos, whatever his major plan is going to be. Is one person is doing that, rather than all of these different. This guy got hit by chemicals. This guy went crazy doing this. It makes more sense that one guy is creating these super beings and sending them out into Gotham to create havoc.
It does make more sense, actually. I mean, I'm thinking about it now as you're